All right, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers. They made a small smattering of moves, some rather large deals, but it hasn't been a huge amount of movement in Green Bay in terms of making big time moves. But when you look at the front office strategy and the approach they're taking, it's actually a really good one. And we got some really good numbers to kind of break down what the Packers are doing. I think it's a phenomenal move by the Green Bay front office. We'll get into that in just a second. But first, I'm Nick, that's Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, talking Packers and their offseason strategy. Again, not a whole lot of deals. I know a lot of Green Bay fans are kind of waiting to see what's going to happen here, but we're going to break down exactly why the Packers are doing what they're doing and why it's actually a really smart approach in terms of how they're going to win more in the future. First and foremost, let's just review some of the deals they made so far. It's a pretty brief list. Let's pull this up. This was courtesy of Perplexity AI. They don't sponsor us. I just love them. They're my favorite AI tool. And here you can see just a list of some of the deals the Packers have made. They, of course, brought in Aaron Banks, signed Nate Hobbs. They re-signed McManus, the kicker, and Isaiah McDuffie, and then signed Mecole Hardman, the former Chiefs speedster wide receiver, to bolster the Packers receiving core. All right, this was not a huge amount of big headline grabbing moves. Obviously, you can look at the names on this list. Some incremental improvement, not not the best team friendly deals, not bad structures either. We actually covered the Banks deal about a week ago. Really, actually smart roster structure for the Packers. But when you understand the Packers and where they sit in terms of how they currently are going into the offseason, you realize the issues with this team aren't with the talent on the field. They're actually a lot better than people think. Let's go and pull up this chart here. This is our first graphic here. This is talking sack adjusted yards per dropback with versus without play action. This chart's courtesy of at Football Insights. A lot of data on the screen in front of you there. Had to go full screen because there's just so much information. But the key thing to focus on here is the y-axis, the no play action, right? To me, that's just an example of talent, right? Play action can be scheme for a quarterback. Let's focus on no play action. And you can see right there in the top right, there's Jordan Love. He's actually the fourth rated quarterback in the NFL operating without play action behind Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Brock Purdy. Purdy's kind of a weird example just because the 49ers and Shanahan have a pretty crazy offensive structure. But you can see Jordan Love right there with all the issues, with all the injuries, some question marks at a couple different positions. He is the fourth highest rated quarterback in the NFL when it comes to operating without play action. What does that mean? It means he's incredibly talented. It means Jordan Love is good enough to win you the way Lamar Jackson wins so many games for the Ravens, takes in the conference championships, the way Josh Allen takes the Bills to conference championships. You've got the structure in there. Now, when you talk about the wide receiver position, well, who's going to be the star? They need another player. Not true. Let's go ahead and pull up our second graphic here. This is the ability to separate by coverage. To me, this is a lagging indicator. If you can get separation as a wide receiver, you're going to be outstanding in the long term. And there you can see, top right, elite separator, man zone, right? Man score at the bottom, I believe, zone coverage at the top. Yeah, zone is the y-axis, man is the x-axis. So you can see here, Wicks, wide receiver, Packers, is the best at getting separation, right? He's better than Mike Evans. He's better than Amon-Ra St. Brown, A.J. Brown, Nico Collins, Ladd McConkey, Jamar Chase. He's far better than all of the best receivers in the National Football League, at least on paper, on getting separation. Now, that hasn't resulted in production yet, but I'm a big believer is that when you get separation, eventually that leads to crazy seasons, crazy productive numbers. And I think the Packers, this is why they haven't been incredibly active, adding more depth. They believe their roster, especially Wicks here as a great example, is already championship worthy. They just need players to grow up. And let's go and get out of these graphics. I know this is a lot of data here for people to digest. And I think this is the key takeaway here with the Packers front office. And I think it's a really smart approach. They understand they've got the talent. Jordan Love's a top four quarterback. We just saw it. Wicks is going to be a future superstar receiver. We just saw the data. We already know they got a lot of great young talent as well. The pieces are there. You want to incrementally improve around the margins and let your coaching staff do what you hired it to do to develop and coach these players. Making a lot of huge deals, upsetting the apple cart would do just that. It would just make the momentum go away. It would degrade from the talent you have on this roster. You have the pieces in place. Now you have to let it play out. Don't be over aggressive. Don't try and change too much and screw up the good momentum you have. This Packers team, we saw it last season. They had the talent to be among the top contenders in the NFL. A lot of close losses against the best teams in football. Going forward, I think they're going to be really, really good in 2025. That's just not my opinion. The data shows it across the board. Miles, I'm curious of your thoughts on all this. But first, Pack fans, Green Bay fans, in the comment section below. All right, obviously the Packers haven't made a ton of moves this offseason, but what's one position group you think they still need to address, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in free agency with whoever's available at this point? Let us know what position you think the Green Bay front office still needs to address a little bit more in this offseason. Put it in the comment section below. But Mize, what are your thoughts on this latest data and just everything going on with the Green Bay Packers?
Yeah, Nick, I think for me, when you look at this, obviously there's a lot of good stuff. I think Dontavian Wicks, as far as the wide receivers go, he's going to be a star. You see Romeo Dobbs up there as well. He's kind of in that upper right hand quadrant, and then I believe looking through it, there's a lot of guys in the middle there, but Jaden Reed is right there in the middle as well. So it looks like he's like kind of a jack of all trades guy, not really the master of any, but he's good enough at either one of them to be like right at the center of that chart. So a lot of Packers guys already up there. We see a lot of good stuff going on for the pack. But when you look at the quarterback chart, that's the thing that really stands out to me. And you said it, and I think this is key. If you can get in that upper right hand quadrant, the top part of that quadrant for quarterbacks, that just shows raw talent. That's no gimmicks, no play action, no, let's try to trick the defense. It's you go out on your own. Can you beat the coverage with your arm? Can you make the reads? Can you do what a quarterback needs to do to just beat somebody? The fact that Jordan Love is up there in that quadrant, I think that shows a lot. This team's got somebody really special behind the gun manning this offense. I think it's really, really, people are probably underrating how good Jordan Love is as far as the talent level that he brings to this team. And I think this team, like you said, it's very good, especially offensively. They have some good receivers. They don't need to go out and do anything super crazy. Maybe they get someone in the draft or something like that, but they didn't need to go out and make, a huge leverage a lot of draft capital and future capital as far as salary cap to go get a big time receiver. There's some guys on this team that I think are good enough to bring them to the level they need. They just need to maybe get a little bit of extra help through the draft, develop guys a little bit more. And I think Jordan Love can do the rest himself. I think we're going to see a lot of really good play from this Packers team this coming year, and it's all due to Jordan Love. I think he's a great quarterback, and I think what this team has as far as what they bring to the table is good enough to compete. And we've seen it through the last few years. They've been a good team. This is a team you don't want to really run into, whether it's playoffs, whether it's a regular season. Packers are a feisty team. They can beat just about anybody. I don't care who it is. This team really is ready to go. But when you look at the graphs and you look at everything brought to the table here for the pack, I love that they've made the moves that they've made. I didn't think they needed to go out and like waste money. I don't think blowing money on players is the smart thing to do. I think the smart thing to do is do what the Packers did. Okay, what do we need to do to accentuate Jordan Love? Go out get another offensive lineman like a guy like Banks. Help our offensive line out a little bit better. How do we go out and make this team better for Jordan Love? And it seems like that is what the Packers have done here. I think a great offseason so far. I'm really excited to see how it pays off this season.
Yeah, and I just looked at their numbers and their rankings last year according to PFF, and this is a Green Bay Packers team. They have no glaring weaknesses on offense or defense. They have areas where they'd like to improve. I think run blocking is one of their big concerns. But let's be totally honest, they had some injuries up front last season, and this is one of the reasons why you bring in Banks from that 49ers offense. Hopefully, he can take that next step, right? So again, this is a Packers team that doesn't have a massive weakness on offense or defense. It's not like they went into this offseason and they're like, God, we don't have anyone that can tackle, or we have our quarterback play is terrible, or we have no good running backs, or we have no tight end room, or whatever, right? They clearly have players. We don't have any safeties, right? They clearly have players everywhere, all three levels of the defense, offensive line, guards, tackles, centers, running backs, receivers. Wicks again looking like a superstar. I love the fact you bring up Romeo Dobbs there. He's on that top right too. Jane Reed's in the middle. So they got three guys that are average or better. That's one of the top spots to be in the National Football League. And of course, the most important position, quarterback, again, based on the data, top four when you remove the gimmicks, the scheming, and things like that. They got everything they genuinely need, right? They have everything to make a title run. They actually perform better than the Philadelphia Eagles in a lot of these rankings. The reality is you just need players to step up. You need them to realize their talent. You need Wicks to play up to his ability. You need Jordan Love to, number one, stay healthy, play up to his ability. And you need to let these young guys grow and develop. You can't be so aggressive that you screw up the good thing you have going. We live in just a hyper impatient world. We live in, oh, we need results now. You see this all the time on social media. You lose one game by 3 points to a good team at home, and suddenly fire everybody, right? That's not how it works. You have the pieces in place. You've got the right coach. It would be different if the Packers coaching staff was terrible. It'd be different if they had no offensive line. I'll compare the Packers to the Bengals, a team we like to talk about on this channel because they got a lot of great players. Their offensive line has been atrocious for years. Their defense is terrible. A lot of questions about their coaching staff. That's different, right? Then you're like, okay, we need to make big moves. The Packers coaching staff, great, right? They don't have any major glaring weakness across the board. They got talent everywhere, and their PFF grades are pretty solid, mostly across the board, even really elite in some areas too. They don't have any glaring weaknesses. Don't be aggressive just to win the offseason. Don't win the headlines. I love the Colin Cowherd quote, the commentator on FS1. He says, you don't want to be the team that wins the press conference. You want to be the team that wins the game, right? You don't want to be the team that is able to make all the big news and have everyone on ESPN talk about, oh, they won the offseason, A+ grade free agency. No one cares, right? You want to be the team that wins games and wins playoff games. And the Packers are in that position right now. They're still young. They're getting better. They're growing up. They're adding amount around the margins to improve some of these areas where they need to improve. And of course, the draft is going to be big, like it is for every team. But the Packers front office, I give them a lot of credit here. There was a lot of temptation after the way it ended in Philadelphia this past season in the postseason that they were going to have to go out and make big moves, wholesale changes, really push this roster over the top. Let's not upset the apple cart here. Let's calm down, get better where we need to get better, focus on the draft, allow our young players to step up and be ready. Again, the numbers show that they are, and let's let the process play out. This is great leadership by Green Bay. This is one of the reasons why the Packers are a really special franchise in the NFL. They take a long view approach. They don't get hyper reactive to what people in the media are saying or people on YouTube are saying or stuff like that. They focus strictly on their long-term goals. We've seen it in the past with how they address the quarterback position, going from Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love. They're taking that same approach across the entire roster. It's the smart move to make. Miles, I will pose a question to you, however, because I always like to put you on the spot. If you look at this Packers roster as we get closer to the draft, where do you want them to go in the draft? Doesn't necessarily have to be their first round pick, but what's one position group, one player, maybe even if you got a player in mind, I'll give you double props if you got one off the top of your head, you think the Packers should really go after in a few weeks?
Well, let me think for a player here while I'm going through this, but I do know where I want them to go as far as what they need to get for this team. You look at where the Packers were deficient. I peeked at their PFF grades going here and just seeing what do they need here as far as, who can help this team out. What they need. They need coverage. Coverage is somewhere where they're a little low. They add Nate Hawk. Great. I think good addition for them to address that there. What they need. Run blocking, a little bit low. Aaron Banks, perfect example. Very good run blocker. That was his forte, so to speak. I think that was a really good option. Now, what do they need? They need interior defensive linemen. They need a big run defender. Because if you look at their interior defensive line, the guys on this Green Bay roster, they were pretty bad at run defense last year. It may have been because of injuries, but overall, across the board, I don't think I saw anyone I think maybe someone got close to 60, but everyone was in the 50s. It was not a lot of good when it came to the run defense of the interior of this defensive line. So when I look at this team, I think that would be the key here. And you look through some of these guys, I think they could go high. Like a guy like Kenneth Grant from Michigan seems like that big 6'3", 340-pound run defender in the middle of the field. He did really good stuff last year at Michigan, 87.5 run defense grade for them in that regard. But then again, another guy, Walter Nolan, Ole Miss, pretty good. He was not quite as big as the Michigan player, but 91.6 overall run defense grade there. So Grant, Nolan, those two guys bring a lot of run defense, bring a lot of high-end talent. Those would be first-round picks. I think those are guys that are probably in the top, 30, 40 players on the big boards you see nowadays. So I like those two guys. I think they bring a lot to the table, but anyone who can help the interior run defense of this team, the pass rush is great. I think they got a lot of great pass rushing talent. They need to stop the run a little bit better. I think a big guy in the middle of the field could help out quite some bit.